Today we're going to read The King's Challenge. What is the genre? Benicio?
The genre is fiction.
And what is our thinking job? KK.
Our thinking jobs are CPSLL.
Okay. So I'm noticing it says The King's Challenge. What is a challenge? What is a challenge? Paige?
A challenge is like something hard that you have to get done so like you can earn a reward or something.
Alright, let's start reading. The King's Challenge. Once long ago, a wise old king wanted to find a new ruler for his reign lion and find the kingdom's most valuable treasure. Where are the sea that we can circle? Will?
We can circle the wise old king and the villagers.
Alright, let's keep reading. Impossible, said one man. Nobody here has a boat that can hold 1,000 fish, and a lion can't be trusted. Another man scowled. There's no valuable treasures here. When I plow my fields, I find only stones. What's the P? What's the P? KK?
The P is, I think it's impossible to do the challenge.
Okay, so I'm going to write P right here. Jaya left the castle and thought about the king's words as she walked along the path near the forest. A breeze blew and leaves swirled through the air like butterflies. They whispered a wonderful idea to her. What's the jot that we should make here? Marquina?
She finished one, but now she has to go, she has to find something and she has to be clever to do it.
That's close. I'm going to jot that she got an idea. So the king smiled. Your answer shows me you and handed Jaya the crown. What thinking job is this? Marquina?
The solution.
And what is the solution?
The solution is what happens when someone tries to solve something that was with them.
But what's the solution that's happening in the story right here?
The king finds someone to be the new ruler.
Notice my lean jot on the paper for solution. When you get back to your seat, you should have the exact same lean jot that I had for solution.
All right. So let's take a minute. What are some of the things that stand out, right? Both in like tone and demeanor, but also in the things that she's emphasizing in the context of her lesson.
She's frozen solid.
Yeah. You know what she probably is a third grade teacher who's really nervous about the data and wants to make sure that on this week's quiz, the kids do better.
Right.
Yeah. Right? Because I think like she is an extreme example, but I'm sure we've all had moments where that is a presence that we're going through, right? In different degrees, hopefully not that intense.
No, she's over, like she's going through the motions of what she thinks she should do.
Yep.
She's
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
she's the one who's engaging with the text. She's just like having the kids basically answer questions that they know the answer to, and they're not really meaningfully discussing the different elements of that text.
She's also going back to the same kids.
Yeah, so lots of cold calling, right, of just sort of one group of kids.
I didn't feel like she was using the text like to understand meaning and then like really have like this transferable thing that she's showing kids to be able to do. She's just like showing in the text. Like it just all felt like it was all about this king.
Yep.
Rather than a reading lesson.
Yep.
To Sandra's point, like it wasn't like we track the character's problem setting and lesson learned to get to the deeper meaning because she referred to it as C, P, S, and LL the whole time. Like I'm sure there were kids in that character who didn't even know what that was.
Yeah. Where's the P? Where's the P? Right? Which is like it's amazing those children just let her say that to them. But I think like again, like an extreme example for purposes of highlighting that, but how many times do we maybe get caught in something where it's like, what's the jot here? That's not a question, right? The question is, what did we learn in the section, or what's the shift in tone or whatever? And then you want to model how to annotate and jot on the page like we would do there, but you want to take the kids thinking in response to a real question and show how does that build their sort of understanding as a reader.
Or even the possibility that there's like one right answer to that. Like if you're gonna ask like, rather than like, what did you jot there?
Right.
Like, you know, like the fact that like the kids, it's like close, but you're wrong. I would jot this. Like there's not one reaction to have after reading the paragraph.
And that can also be like, well, I'm hearing you say like this idea that you didn't say, but it's the one that I planned. So then I'm gonna write that idea and we're gonna move on. Right?
But she was efficient. Like that was almost under 3 minutes.
There
I will
was a
give her
complete
that
lack
praise.
of close reading, but it was efficient. She got it done.
Well, Kiki kept up.
She's doing fine.
Okay.
Okay, hold on.
Kiki. Oh, you gotta go.
You're the opposite of all these things.
Today we're gonna read The Champion of Quiet. What's the genre, Ramaya?
This is another round.
The genre is fiction.
Yeah, it is.
And what is our thinking job? Nahom.
The thinking jobs are the problem, the solution, the characters, and the lesson learned.
What is a champion? What's a champion? Jaden?
Champion is something, someone's good at, like, a specific thing.
Okay, great. Let's get started. I'm gonna read and you're gonna follow along as I read it to you. It was Tuesday, and Maggie hated Tuesday last, as always. What doesn't Maggie like about Tuesday, Madia?
The reason why Maggie doesn't like Tuesdays is because it meant gym class, which also meant picking teams, which you would be picked last, as always.
Great. Maggie was a new student that year in a class of champions. To help herself remember the other kids, she'd come up with a special title for each one. Why did she come up with a special title for each kid? Dathan?
I think the reason why she comes up with the secret title for everyone is because to help her remember the kids' names so that she
Thank you.
she can say
Great. We're going to keep reading. There was Kevin, champion of clean desk, and Linny, champion of last pick. So who are some of the kids and what are their titles? Jordan?
one of their kids is Kevin. He's a champion of a clean desk. Another one is
Desk.
Lavinia, and she's the champion of knowing the answers first. Then another one, Carolina, champion of tardy.
And what title did Maggie give herself? What title did Maggie give herself? Deja.
She gave herself the champion of quiet because she's always quiet.
Mr. Murphy, the gym teacher, never felt brave enough to talk to her. Where is Maggie now? Where is she now? Nyan, where is Maggie?
Maggie is now in gym class.
Yeah, gym class is the setting. And how does Maggie feel, Jahara?
She feels frustrated and left out.
Okay, interesting. Let's keep going. Looking at Jasmine, Maggie realized that. So, I'm noticing that Maggie hasn't talked to Jasmine yet. Why hasn't Maggie talked to Jasmine? Glenn, what do you think? Why hasn't Maggie talked to Jasmine yet?
Maggie didn't talk to Jasmine yet because she didn't feel brave enough to talk to her.
Interesting. That's true. Good point. Let's keep reading.
Okay. So, what are some things that stood out in this non-example?
She doesn't give any, sorry guys, again, she doesn't give any type of positive reinforcement, so these kids don't know that they're right. They give the right answer and then she just moves on. So they don't have that investment into the text or that motivation to raise their hand and want to talk in class.
What's part of the reason they're giving her right answers pretty easily?
She's giving leading questions too, like there's no transferable thinking. And then whenever a student does something right, like she doesn't tell them like what they did well. It was just kind of like, great, good, right answer, but like what thinking process did you see the child go through that made it correct?
Right, so she's teaching a text, she's not teaching readers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, she's just cutting them off.
She also doesn't capitalize on opportunities for discussion in it. Like she doesn't expect the students to dialogue with each other or even to dialogue with her really. Like she asked 2 inferential, critical, like in the whole thing, everything was factual except those 2 questions she got to at the end. And in those questions, like there could have been debate, there could have been students who disagreed or phrased it differently or said something different. And instead she was just like, great, that's right, let's move on. Rather than being like, where did you get that idea? Or like, how do you know that? What did you see or hear, or why do you think that? It ended up just being even more factual than the factual questions, and it was very like curved and cut off, and now we're moving on.
What else?
I think like if there's just no transferability, like she was just reading and they were just listening, and I guess they had it in front of them, but they're just reading a bit and being asked a question, they're reading a bit and being asked a question, and if they were given a text themselves, like using the Lavinia model on day 3, they don't have a low burden, or you're asking them questions and they're not going to know what to do. You're not giving them any sort of tools to handle the text on their own. It's just making it seem like someone's always going to be there asking you questions about the text.
And a more skilled version that is equally a non-example would be someone who's like, you know, so-and-so, we learned this about the character, I forget the character's name in this case, but like, now as we read, we're going to be thinking about like, why does she decide to give names to all of these characters, right? And at the end of this paragraph, I want you to be able to answer that question. Because that sounds like it's transferable, and it's not at all, because that's not, the purpose of transferable questions is what's the self-talk you can teach kids as readers anytime they read. And that question, why does so-and-so name their whatever, is not, they can never ask themselves that for another text, right? What else? Anything else stand out?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So instead of asking that question, would you ask something like, how does this character feel, or like, what's their perspective?
Yep. Yep. Or, and you could start with like, what's happening in this paragraph, right? What do we learn about our character? Anything like that and that list is pretty exhaustive, but it's not, like there are other questions that can be transferable and can get at the thinking. The most important part is like, check yourself and ask, is this something the kid can ask themselves the next time they get stuck? There are times for text-dependent questions. We would generally say the ratio should be 80-20. 80% are transferable, 20% are text-dependent. Oftentimes they're the ones you plan as like a back pocket question to help kids if they have a misconception. But what's important is that when you do that, you always bring it back to the original transferable question and help the kids see the connection between the thinking there.
I know we're not talking about guided reading, but when you just said like, when you get to the end of this, like be able to answer this question, in terms of like the plans that we've been using, like that's sort of the model that we've been using in guided reading. Is that different for guided reading, or no?
I would use the exact same list.
So we would not be asking like a specific focus question.
And it's not, again, it's not that there's not a place to scaffold and support, but the kids should be thinking transferably across the genre. Like, that's your opportunity to say, as you read this, you know, whatever Magic Tree House book, whatever you're reading, we're going to be thinking, and you could use character names, that doesn't make it not transferable, right? We're gonna be thinking about, you know, what happens to X and Y in this chapter, and how does that deepen our understanding of the problem, or something like that.
I think if you're using step bottom lines, a lot of those are very transferable things about perspective or conflict.
And what that can sound like, because that's, so the question can be transferable, but in terms of the book launch, when you name the strategy, that can sound like, I don't know, like character motivation, right? Today we're going to pay special attention to the character's motivation because that helps us understand the problem in the story. That's the part that we often miss when we use the step bottom line, but it's super easy to connect it back to meaning with a focus. We just have to make that really explicit for kids.
I guess my other thing that came up in this non-exemplar situation is just sort of like, I'm just like so surprised they haven't rioted. Like,
I mean, you know, film crew.
I mean, I understand there's like a video, but like you could be on YouTube. Like, I don't know, like, I just think, I think the scenario you would get out of that kind of teaching is, you know, ultimate destruction.
Yeah, they're boring. Like that's
in our grade level,
it's so boring.
Right.
Right.
Or
and
like bathroom passes galore, right? Like just, you know, just boredom.
Right. And so that's when we talk about like authentic engagement, like thinking about the couple critical thinking questions that, you know, your high flyer is going to be in the class like, I got this, right? And then you ask that question like, oh, I have to think for a minute, right? That's authentic engagement that we want to get them back in a text. And it starts with text selection. Okay, so I do want to give us a little bit of time to kind of take some of these examples that you got. We have some resources for you to use here. The transferable questions are also included across different genres based on what you're teaching. And we had a chance to name some of the non-example kind of pre-mortem moves that, while extreme, I certainly have had moments where I get close to bits and pieces of this, right? I want us to take maybe 15 minutes, and then we'll check in. Let's spend 15 minutes going back to lesson plans that you brought, and read through with some of these in mind. Do you have a super clear transferable takeaway? What is the quality of your questioning? And then we'll spend some time rehearsing it then.